We're back continuing this great discussion with the candidates for the 47th Congressional District. Alan, in one of Gary's campaign pieces, he makes the following point that you, a liberal Democrat, are, quote, part of the problem, and cites the fact that California's debt has tripled in the past 10 years, has the highest sales tax in the nation, second highest gas tax, third highest income tax, its credit rating is the worst in the nation, third highest unemployment rate in the nation, and over 254 companies have left the state since 2011. Yes. What would be your response to the basic charge that your policies and the policies of your party are business unfriendly?
Well, that's just not true. I think that the greatest problem that the legislature has faced is the fact that the Republicans in the legislature have not provided any additional resources to maintain the stability as the nation and as the world has gone through a great economic recession and depression. California has balanced its budget. California is on the way out. California still remains the 7th or 8th largest economy in the world. California still has the highest technology in the world. California is the home of the greatest amount of goods movement in the nation. Half the goods come through and so we still maintain our position. Yes, we do have certain problems. We're still not out of it, but we can get there by having cooperation and having both sides sitting down and working together. One side refuses to work.
Gary, I'll give you a chance to just respond to that.
Well, first of all, let me just say I do agree with Alan that both sides need to work together. It's not the other party's fault. But I will tell you that I also think that the state of California is headed in the wrong direction. You listed some statistics. There are many more. Our state legislature is not making the right decisions for the state of California. We're not pulling out of it. You talk to people that are unemployed or underemployed. We are not pulling out of it. We need to do more. We need to go back to what Governor Majan did, where he provided a positive private sector business climate, and then the private sector created jobs for our citizens. We need to do that again.
Alan, we've known each other for a long time, and I have a lot of respect for some of the things you've done in the legislature, such as redistricting reform, and as a councilman getting clean air and all. But the state legislature is dysfunctional, and the ratings are under 20% in the public's view of the legislature as an institution, not about their individual legislators. I'm a member of a group called No Labels, and they offer a bumper sticker that will hopefully embody their message, and it says, "Stop fighting, start fixing." And I think that's the mood of the country and the state and the community.
Yes. I have that stick. That has been my reputation throughout my 14 years in the legislature. I am known as a person that works across the aisle. The major changes, and I have been very successful in a legislature that's had a difficult time coming together. As you pointed out, I was the one that brought together that when I first started here in Long Beach on the city council, when people said you can't have clean air and you can't have economic development, I said you can have them, we can have a sustainable system, and they can both work together. And after fighting me for many years, they all joined with me. The same thing when I first introduced independent redistricting. Both parties didn't want it. I said we've got to fix the legislature. The way in which it works is when we come together and we figure out a system that we are responsible to the people that elect us, not to the political parties, not to the special interests. I didn't get a second when I first started, but I kept fighting for it for years. Yes, I have stopped fighting. I have worked to fix it. That is my reputation.
Gary, I've asked you this before, but view yourself and are a moderate Republican.
I am.
You're seeking to go to Congress that is dominated by the extreme right. Won't it be lonely in the middle?
Well, I think it may be lonely at first, but I'm hoping to grow the middle. I got to tell you, and I give a chance, Alan, for a rebut, but that simply isn't true. My perspective is
what's not true?
He's not a bipartisan problem solver. He's part of his party's leadership. And the Republicans are just as bad, by the way. So it's not an other party thing. Both are adhering to their party. Now, we do need to move our country forward. We need to work together. I do agree. I am a strong supporter of no labels. I'm also a strong supporter of their no budget, no pay at the federal legislature. You can't pass a budget. You shouldn't get paid. I think that's a great idea.
I totally agree with that.
That'll also make me unpopular in Washington when I get there.
Okay.
But I'm not there to. I'm not going to fit
We've
in.
alerted each candidate they'll have an opportunity to ask one question of the other. Gary goes first. Gary, your question to Alan.
Certainly. I've noticed that there's been a video tracker that's been following me and my family around town, and she says she's with the Democratic Party. Can you tell me what you think the benefit of that is, having somebody tape me and my family?
The person does not work for me. If the person does work for the Democratic Party, then you'd have to ask the Democratic Party.
Well, she said she does. She works with the Alan Lowenthal and the Democratic Party, because we did ask last night.
And she said she works for Alan Lowenthal?
She said that she works for the Democratic Party.
Okay, fair enough. Alan, a question for Gary.
Gary, it's really hard to figure out where you stand on any issue. So the question is the Ryan budget. What parts of the Ryan budget do you support, and what parts of the Ryan budget do you oppose?
That's a great question. Thank you. As briefly as I can, let's look at the budget process. The president presented a budget, didn't get any votes. No Republicans, no Democrats, nobody voted for it. Then the House put together a budget, the Ryan budget. The single largest problem with the Ryan budget, it doesn't have any Democrat support. My question for the Republicans has been, what would you have had to do to trade away, to collaborate, to compromise, to build consensus, to bring the moderate, the blue dog Democrats? Come on, fellas. Yes, you have a majority in the House, but it would be a much, much, much better budget if it's a bipartisan budget. If it's not a bipartisan budget, then it's dead. It's not going anywhere. None of us are served. So I would tell you the parts that I disagree with are the parts that they weren't willing to go get Democrat support. My strongest priority is to be on the Budget Committee, and I will promise you that I will work with both sides and come up with a compromise, as I've done in the city of Long Beach for the last 6 years, leading the Budget Oversight Committee. I will bring the same skills and the same intent to Washington.
Alan, 30 seconds to respond.
You still didn't answer the question. What specific parts? Do you support vouchers for Medicare? Do you support reducing the tax rate on the highest income earners from 35 to 25%? Do you support balancing the budget on the backs of the middle class?
No, I do not support balancing the budgets on the back of the middle class, but I think that increasing tax rates is going to have a harmful impact on our economy. The number one thing that we need to do is we need to get our economy going. We need to create jobs for the unemployed. We got better jobs for the underemployed. That is my focus. I'm willing to work with anybody.
So you support the tax cuts to the rich?
I am willing to work with any party to get a compromise and move it forward.
Fair enough. And
there are no tax cuts. No, I do not support tax cuts.
Gentlemen, the issue is joined. We'll be back after these messages. We're back continuing this great conversation with the candidates running for United States Congress. Alan, you sponsored Senate Bill 568,
yes,
which would ban styrofoam cups and this kind of stuff, which
breaks down into
tiny
particles,
and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
But it's been labeled a job killer bill,
yes,
by the Chamber of Commerce,
yes,
and it died. It passed the Senate, died in
right,
the Assembly.
Right.
But you believe, obviously, that the environmental benefits outweigh the.
Yes.
Gary, you had a different view of the bill.
Yes.
Tell us why.
Who would you like to go first?
You.
Love to. Well, first of all, I think one of the things that Al and I agree on is we are both environmentally oriented. We would like our city, our state, our country to be more sustainable for the long term. I've led the effort in Long Beach. We've cleaned up the Alamitos Bay. It was D's and F's, water quality. Now it's A's and B's. We've done great things. But when I look at this particular legislation, I think it's headed in the right direction, just not at the right time. Okay. As I talk to restaurants, their concern is going to add thousands of dollars of cost, which then gets passed on to the consumer. We will lose some jobs. Now, hopefully we'll get some good jobs down the road, but we would lose jobs in today's economy. We can't afford to lose jobs right now. But I think the intent is good. We just need to collaborate a little more.
Okay, reasonable people can differ on an issue like this. Foreign policy, it's a lot to sum up in a minute, but give us, Alan, your basic view of foreign policy. You, as a member of Congress, would be voting on whether to go to war, not to go to war, voting budgets for national defense.
Right.
Give us a summary of your thinking on foreign policy. We'll ask the same question of Gary.
Well, you know, I certainly support now and I'm glad to see that we've out of Iraq and that we will soon be out of Afghanistan. I think we've been there too long. I think that it's time to come home. I think our foreign policy should be targeted at the greatest risk to the United States. I think that I'm a strong advocate for the state of Israel. I think that Iran represents the most dangerous nation in the world. It is funding Hezbollah, and and Hamas, and I think that I support the president's and the worldwide attempt to put a tremendous economic sanctions on Iran and to make sure that Iran never develops a nuclear weapon.
Gary, same question.
Gosh, I think I agree on pretty much all of that and more. Certainly a strong supporter of Israel. I think we also stayed too long over in the Middle East. But I'll also add to that and say one of the mistakes we made is we charged the war on a credit card. We've never done that in our country before. We've always had to make the difficult decision. Do you invest in schools?
And that was a Republican president.
That was a Republican president.
George W. Bush.
Yes, he did.
He just said keep shopping,
That's
and
correct.
he lowered taxes.
You're absolutely right. That was a failed
Well,
policy.
I commend you as a Republican for criticizing a policy of your own,
I'm
our own
going to
president.
represent the
And I
people of
concur with
47th
Gary.
District,
Yeah.
not a party.
Part of the economic crisis today is we never knew how much that war cost, and we were paying for it.
Yes.
And now we are suffering the consequences of that.
How do we get to work together? I mean, the two of you, if you were in the same body, could obviously work together.
Yeah,
but Gary, it's going to be very lonely there, despite your best protestations. There are not a lot of, should you be successful, you won't find a lot of company in the Republican Party there. Won't you be a voice in the wilderness?
I don't think so. But I could tell you, I had the same question asked of me of 2005 when I ran for Long Beach City Council. And I had my best compliment about a year and a half ago, and it wasn't meant as a compliment. But one of my colleagues at the end of a particularly frustrating meeting says, I don't understand it. You're the only Republican. There's 8 Democrats. There's a Democrat mayor, and you always get what you want. Now, first of all, I want to be clear. I never get all I want. We don't, none of us, not in our personal lives, not in our professional lives. What she was alluding to, and she didn't know, is, yeah, I'm willing to compromise with the person on my left, the one on my right. How do I work with the mayor? What's in it important? What's his priorities? That's the same kind of mentality you have to take to Washington. Work with whoever you need to work with, because at the end of the day, the only way you serve your constituents well is to move our country forward.
Gentlemen, time goes fast when you're having fun. It's come time for the closing statements, and we had a flip of the coin. And Alan Lowenthal, you'll go first with a 1-minute closing statement.
Yeah, I'd like to say the measure of a person is what your opposition says about you. That's how you know who is Alan Lowenthal. And I'm going to read you a statement that was published yesterday by John McLaren, president of the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association, the head of all the shipping lines and all this. Alan Lowenthal started his legislative career in Sacramento about the same time I started in my current position. Over the years, I've opposed a number of bills introduced by the senator. The running joke in many speeches I've given the past few years was that his name came up so frequently at my family dinner table that my children thought he was a long-lost uncle. But over the years, a funny thing happened. As I frequently worked in opposition to a number of his bills, I grew to really like the guy. Even if we disagreed on policy, Senator Lowenthal was always courteous, willing to listen, and never turned a political fight into a personal grudge match. Even though I gave him lots of opportunities and justification to do so, the civility and dignity with which Senator Lowenthal conducted himself and pursued his legislative agenda in many respects represents a different era and value system in Sacramento. As the legislature came to a close the other day, it dawned on me that Alan Lowenthal wouldn't be in the Capitol anymore. I'm going to miss the guy. This was said by the leader of the business community.
Thank you, Alan. Gary DeLong, your closing statement, please.
You know, as I look at that, Alan is a great guy. I've known him for years, but I take him, he's a nice man with misguided economic policies. So what I will promise you is I will make the constituents of the 47th my highest priority. I will focus on getting our economy going and jobs created for our citizens. I will use all the skills at my disposal to do that. I will work in a bipartisan manner. I will work with anyone to move the country forward. That's what you can count on from me. And I would respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you, Gary. It's now my role as moderator, 1-minute closing commentary. I'd like to say this. I have a lot of respect because politicians get banged up pretty bad in the press. I have a lot of respect for the men and women who choose to enter the democratic system, to do all the things you have to do to get elected, to raise money, to go to countless functions and dinners, to knock on doors. I've known both of these men for many, many years. They're men of high integrity, high principle, high character, and I think we are fortunate as constituents to have 2 men of this quality running to represent us. So I wish both of them every success in their efforts, and I thank you for joining us at home for the very first show of our new 21st anniversary season. Alan, Gary, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please join us next week for the next edition of Straight Talk. Good night, everyone.